Hello everyone, can you hear me? Hello, good morning. Good morning everyone. So just going to start the session. I hope you can hear me well. I can see myself on the screen now. That's a good sign. So hopefully there others are joining. So there is just one thing that I would like to say um, is you can actually do the chat messaging. Uh, One second, sorry. One second, I'll just try to share my screen, not my face. Let me just get help from Puneet. Okay, this is a screen that I wanted to show. Um, so I'm Arsha Kuntur. So this session we are doing it on solar workshop, solar rooftop systems. This is from EcoSoch Solar Office. Um, So, right next to me is Pramod, whom some of you might have spoken to him earlier. Uh, he is helping me with the system. So, if you have any questions or you're not able to hear, you can actually send him a chat message on the same YouTube website. There is for that you have to go and enable that by clicking um, on the right corner on your image. You have to click, uh, open it, and then there will be an option where if you enable it, you should be able to chat with Pramod. So if you have any questions, since it's a single one-way stream, I'll be talking. You can always raise hands or ask a question on the chat message. Then I'll try to answer it immediately, or I will answer it at the end of that particular module. So this session is for 2 hours. So the main objective of today's thing is to discuss, start with electricity, so that some of you would refresh, some of the things that you learned in your school, and then present you some of the energy scenarios in India, and uh, and also understand your electricity bills. Once we do that, then we go into solar. Uh, so solar, you understand different types of systems, and then also the policies and some of the financials savings that one gets out of going with solar systems. Then we'll go in detail about system components that are involved in solar, making a solar rooftop system. Then we discuss site survey parameters that we have to take consideration during the design of the system. We do talk about shadow analysis, how the shading affects solar generation. And then lastly, we'll talk about remote monitoring and then opportunities in solar. So this session is primarily we're covering what I've just discussed. What we don't cover is the theoretical concepts with lack of time, and also the big utility scale projects which you see in the farmlands, and also financial engineering. That's a subject by itself. How the finances modeling work, how people sell solar power to others, and also different statewide policies. So jumping back into the webinar today. Before that, I just want to check with Pramod. Is everything okay? I mean, everyone is able to. Okay. So let's go with electricity. Electricity, as you many of you know, it's actually a movement of electrons. That's where the electricity comes from, right? Whenever there's a electrons are moving, they are doing some amount of work. When they touch something like light bulbs or fans, you can run them, make them rotate, or turn on the light, or do something useful with that. There are five basic components in electricity. One is voltage, current, resistance, power, and energy. If you look at the definitions of each of them, one way to look at electricity is thinking about analogy of water. More or less, all the parameters are, we can compare it with water. If you look at charge, you can think of water tank, filled with water, and each of these water particle you can consider it as a one charge uh, element. And the second one is the voltage. Voltage is a difference of charge between points. In the in the actual definition is that there's a difference of charge due to electrostatic forces that we can't see, but you can imagine in the water analogy as you have two different particles. For example, there's a particle at the top of the tank and there's a particle at the bottom of the tank. The height difference between these two particles typically is a pressure that you get in the water, right? If more water in the tank is there, the more faster the water comes down. Same way, if the voltage is high, how the height difference is here, we talked in the water. If the charge between 2 points is more, the voltage will be more, which means that you can get more power out of it. Okay, so that's one way to easily remember the voltage. Voltage is charged between 2 points, is measured in volts. So the more the voltage is, the more the work that could be done with that charge. The current is a rate at which charge is flowing. So as we said, each of these water particle is one charge. And how you measure the flow rate of the water, you can actually measure the flow rate of this charged particles also. So current is nothing but a rate at which the charge is flowing. It is measured in amps. So if you have a bigger pipe, you get more amount of current, right? And the more flow, if smaller the pipe, smaller the flow is. So same way the amps is a flow of water at certain rate. The actual definition of ampere is 6.24 into 10 to the power of electrons per second. If that's a movement of electrons that are flowing, then you get that much of current out. Okay, so that's one other definition that it's for you to know. The really important definition that I wanted to focus on is power. Power is similar to current. It means the rate at which the charge is transferred. But also, as we discussed, there is one more property for electrons, which is the voltage. So at certain voltage, the voltage is high, means if the pressure is high, the flow of current is also would be more. So power is actually defined as voltage multiplied by current. If the voltage is more, you get more amount of power. If current is more, means if you have a bigger pipe hose and current is flowing, then you get more power as well. So it is measured in watts. In other terms, it also measured in kilowatts. 1,000 watts is equivalent to 1 kilowatt. So the one analogy is it's a rate at which the water tank is getting emptied. The more the voltage, more current is there. When I open the tap, the more pressure the water comes out into the tank, right? The power is something that is measured at that instant of time. When the tap is open, how much of water is coming out, we can consider it as a power. The other one is energy. Energy is a total amount of power consumption over a period of time. So you have a bucket at the bottom of the tap. You fill the bucket in 10 minutes, right? So the energy is the total amount of water that is filled in that bucket. So one way to look at is energy is nothing but the power multiplied by time. Power is something that's measured that instant of time. Time is something that is over certain period. So the energy is measured in kilowatt hours. It is kWh. uh, you would have our watt hours, 1,000 watt hours is 1 kilowatt hour. Another in regular when you look at electricity bills, we generally talk in units. 1 unit of power, that 1 unit of energy that you would see on your electricity bill corresponds to 1 kilowatt hour of energy. Okay, these are the different symbols. Voltage is V, current is I, P, power is P, uh, energy is measured. I mean, typically these are representations, but you should look at uh, the units. One is voltage, amperes, watts, and watt hours. Okay, energy is power multiplied by time, and power is voltage multiplied by amperes. You can actually measure all of these things that we discussed using energy meters. Here I have put one demonstration of one of the fans at our office. This is an energy efficient fan that we have. I'll just uh, run the video and I'll tell you what exactly is showing. Now you are seeing this is a energy meter. What it's showing is the 231 volt of that fan, and fan is running, not running now, so it's showing with a correction factor 0.02 amps. Uh, okay, and the last one is a frequency that you don't need to know for this session. Uh, so now what it's showing is uh, the wattage, which is 1.9 watts. So watt is the power, right? So right now, this fan works with a remote control, and I'm just showing that turning on the fan speeds. So as I increase the speed of the fan, the wattage changes. Uh, so for example, I go to speed 3. Okay, the fan speed increases. Now the power also increased to 16 watts. Okay, so now we'll go to speed 4. It's going showing 22 watts. Okay, if I go to speed 5, it goes to 35 watts. And then I switched off the fan, so now it's 0 watts. So you get an idea that power is something that's instinct of time that's running. And if I run this fan for, let's say, a fan takes uh, 10 watts, right? And if I run this fan for 1 hour, it is 10 watt hours. That is the total energy, that it has taken to run the fan. Okay, so the other analogies to look for is a 100-watt bulb, right? You would have seen these incandescent bulbs, which these days no one are using or stopped using it, and it's a good thing, because it consumes a lot of power. But if you look at a 100-watt bulb, if you run it for 1 hour, it takes 100 watt hours, or equivalent to 86 kcals. If you go to the gym, you would have been told that a human being needs 2000 kcals, right? 2000 cals is needed. And you can convert the kcals to watt hours. Kcals is nothing but energy, and watt hours is nothing but energy. 2000 kcals is roughly equivalent to 2400 watt hours. So if you run a 100-watt bulb for 24 hours, you would be consuming, a bulb will be consuming 2000 watt hours of energy. A human being needs 2400 watt hours as well. So you can roughly compare that a light bulb is equivalent to a human being. AC stabilizer, this is something that many of you would have in your homes. One stabilizer takes around 20 watts of power. if you run it for 12 hours a day, right? A lot of people keep the stabilizers on for whatever reason, they don't switch it off. Uh, and it keeps consuming 20 watts. Now, let's say a household runs one AC and runs it on for uh, 300 days, even when AC is not running, right? And you multiply, 20 watts into 12 into 300 days, you get roughly 72 units of energy that you are consuming. Per unit in your electricity bill, you are paying 7 rupees today. Sorry, on average, at highest lab, you're actually paying 7 rupees 80 paisa or so after taxes. So you can calculate, you're roughly losing around 500 to 600 rupees per AC per year if you not turn off the stabilizer, because it also consumes the power. So if you have any stabilizers or ACs at home, I think you should really relook at it and do a little audit, and probably you can save some money. Maybe a ticket to a movie tonight. Some of the other estimations of electricity energy consumption by different appliances. A tube light consumes around 40 watts, the old ones, right? CFLs. LED tube light, on the other hand, takes 20 watts. And of course, a lot of people are now going for LEDs, which is fantastic. This was not true even 2 years ago. Still people were buying the regular ones. Prices have come down, so that's a great thing. There's one more good thing: the fan, right? Fans, people still use, unfortunately, the old ones, which is they consume 75 watts. But you may not know there are energy efficient fans. The one which I showed you the video and which we have at our office is an energy efficient fan from a company called Superfan, and the other company called Gorilla is also there, which consumes much less power. They run on a Bill DC motors, so they take 35 watts. A TV consumes 55 watts. So you can the LED TVs, right? In fact, LED smaller ones take around 30 watts as well. The only thing which is we don't have energy efficient one today is a geysers. Geysers, unfortunately, they consume 2000 watts minimum. So instead of using geysers, it's always a good solution for people to go for solar water heaters. Okay, so it's important to know these wattages and power consumption, what's the power, what energy is, and how your appliances are consuming, so that without anyone's help, you yourself can go and do the energy audit. And this energy audit is also important for solar. And the connection is that by doing this first, you would understand the rest of the topic for the day, as well as you can also, at the end of the session, I hope that you would be able to do an audit of your home by yourself. Getting to the next topic, which is a energy scenario in India. The total installed capacity is 329 gigawatts. Roughly, I think it's now 340 or something. It has become in last 1 year from the time that I got the data published. It's a This is a total, all the power plants, that includes a coal, large hydro, small hydro, wind, biomass, nuclear, gas, diesel, everything combined together. India, if you turn on all the plants that we have, and at the same time, we can actually produce 329 gigawatts of power. 1 gigawatt is 1000 megawatt, and 1 megawatt is 1000 kilowatt, right? So you can look at the scale of the energy requirement for the power plants requirement that we have. Um, Out of this, only 13 has come from solar. In terms of the energy, right? We talked, whenever you see in the newspapers, they only talk about the power plant capacity in terms of the power, not in the energy. So if it's a 329 gigawatts, power from coal and everything, solar, although it's 13 gigawatts, right now it has become almost 20 gigawatts now. It is, in the energy terms, solar does not produce that much energy. So it actually, because solar, although we have 12 hours of sunlight, we only, solar literally works for 4 hours, for a good light. And which is why the energy that coal plant, which runs for 24 hours, is different from the solar power plant of the same capacity. because you are only running for 4 hours in a day, a maximum 5 hours, an average throughout the year. So right now in the current scenario, solar produces only 0.45%. The 2022, the plan of the government is to make solar 100 gigawatts. 60 gigawatts is coming from utility scale and 40 gigawatts is coming from rooftop projects. So this is a very lofty goal that government has set itself. Uh, if it says that 100 gigawatts by 2022, you're still, very far off from where we are today. However, if you look at total energy, we are really not talking big numbers here. Although it looks like 100 gigawatts is quite a good amount. It's like 25% of 400 is 100. But in terms of energy, because solar produces five times less than the regular coal or thermal power, it only is, in the terms of energy, it's only producing 5% of the total energy. Okay, this is important for you to know. uh, because a lot of people get carried away about this 100 gigawatts. Solar is already big, but it's not a big deal at this time, even by 2022 standards. So that's a present scenario in solar. Uh, Now I want you to look at why someone has to prefer to go solar. Before we discuss solar, right? We'll look into this. Well, some of the reasons why people want to go solar are why you are here, listening to this session. Um, just to look at them, is first thing is, can I reduce my electricity bill? Okay, can I produce my own power and reduce it? Yeah, that's one of the first benefits. The second is earn money. Some of the people set up their power plants on someone else's houses, or commercial buildings, establishments, or factories, and earn money. The people, if you set up a solar power plant and you earn money by that, because the owner of that building can pay you the money for whatever you have set up for your investment. So a lot of people do this. The other one is, if you're a company, today, there are a lot of GST benefits for solar. Typically, for electrical components, GST is around 18%. But for solar, actually, they made it only 5%. If you set up a solar power plant, as per the government rule, a power plant attracts only 5% of the GST. A huge, almost like 13% government is giving a subsidy as of today. We don't know how long it's going to last, but that's a great benefits for people to really adapt to solar at this time. The last one is future rise, in terms of tangible, the future rise in tariff. The tariff rate is, every year we are seeing 5% increase. By putting solar today, you would avoid paying higher tariffs in the future years. For companies, you also get accelerated depreciation benefits. This is something that for private limited companies, it's applicable. Then you have increased home value. The people who already put solar, they're earning money today, and obviously that the plant attracts, or the home attracts higher sale value as well. Uh, then you also have many local jobs that are created. Companies like us who serve the local communities, like in Bangalore, we are giving a lot of job opportunities for the people here. If you look at non-tangible benefits, there is a the water saving is huge. A thermal power plant consumes 3,000 liters for every 1 megawatt hour of energy produced, whereas the solar consumes only 175 to 200 liters per megawatt hour of energy produced. It reduces the heat on your rooftop by putting solar, and also all the electrical vehicles. The government is a push to go electric. The idea is that all these cars run not on the fossil fuel, from diesel to coal, but transition to coal to renewable power, which is happens to be solar or wind or hydro. By having to go solar, we also have a reduce our global dependencies in fossil fuels. The other one, biggie, is the impact of climate change. Many of you already know about the effects of climate change. The latest is Kerala. What you're seeing. this torrential storms or rains, infrequently or frequently coming now. So you're seeing, that by going to fossil fuels, we're going to reduce these effects in long run. There are certain things which we can't change anymore. The world is what it is right now, but by going for solar, we could avoid that. We also reduce the transmission distribution losses. And last one is to inspire the next generation. We all know that the fossil fuels is not the story to be told in this century. I think solar, will happen, if not today, tomorrow. Why not do it today and inspire the next generation to also go for solar? So that's about reasons, tangible and intangible benefits on solar. If you look at now, look at the basics of solar. Just before I continue, if you have any questions, we're going to go a little technical here. You can definitely send a message in the group on the YouTube, and then I'll try to respond. So the basics of solar, you had all seen the panels. If you look at this panel, it consists of individual cells. There's, a module consists of 60 cells or 72 cells of this interconnected with each other. And then if you look at the total frame, you have a aluminum frame which holds the glass. This is a substrate that holds the cells themselves, and also there is a junction box where the electricity is collected. I mean, the terminals are there from where the electricity flows. This is a broadly the panel components. How does this work? When the solar cell generates current and voltage at its terminals, when actually sunlight falls on it. A lot of people have misconception that it's a heat that generates it, but it's not the heat, but it's the sunlight. It's the photons that actually generate the electricity. The electricity generated by solar depends upon the intensity of light, the area of the cell, and the angle at which the light falls on it. If you have a lot of shadow, the intensity of light is less, so the generation also would go down. Electricity is supplied to a load by connecting its terminals. As I said, there is a positive and negative terminals out of this panel. To that, you can actually connect that panel to some load points, which happens to your fans, lights. So the flow of electrons happen from the panels and go to supply the load. So the main things to remember, it is not the heat, but it's the light that is important for panels to generate. There are three types of panels. One is amorphous thin film, monocrystalline, and polycrystalline modules. The last one is a BIPV module, which is a building integrated photovoltaics. If you look at these three panels, they all use different technologies. Today, as per the ratings of panels are concerned, they all will be rated in power. However, the main difference between this, for you to know, is the efficiency of the panels. Some of the panels have lower efficiency, some of the panels have higher efficiency. In this case, amorphous and thin films work at lower efficiency. What it means is in a given space of size of the panel, you can produce more power or less power. That's what the efficiency is. A panel, let's say it's a 2 square meters of area. A monocrystalline module can produce up to 400 watts, for example, whereas a polycrystalline module could produce 340 watts in that 1 by 2 square meters of area, whereas amorphous thin film in the same area, 1 by 2 meters, it could be producing only 250 watts. So each has its another advantages. Amorphous film, although it takes more space, it's primarily used in places where there's a lot of snow or a lot of cloudy weathers, because it can actually generate a bit more amount of power than the polycrystalline, even when there are shadows. It kind of works in ambient light. But in India, what happens is, even in Bangalore, it's cloudy, but it's not as cloudy as in the uh, some of the Western countries. So the generation is more or less, is good with poly and monocrystalline, and it has spatial constraint. We have space is a major constraint for us. Because of that, well, space and cost. Uh, Most of the systems in India have adapted polycrystalline and monocrystalline. Mono is little expensive than poly, but they both are almost of similar efficiencies. You would see these modules quite a bit in India compared to amorphous and thin film. The other type is BIPV modules. BIPV also comes in thin as well as in monocrystalline modules. Uh, the cells are monocrystalline or amorphous, thin film based. However, the idea of BIPV is that it can become like your glass windows, which is a little more decorative. You let the sunlight come in. It is just to please the aesthetics. The space is not a constraint. The power generation will be much lower, but people opt for BIPV for greenhouses and for other decorative purposes. This is some of the panel dimensions. Example of a 35 module, which is the length here is 2 meters, and the approximately it's 1960 mm. The width is 990 mm. This is something, the weight of this panel, one panel is 22 kgs, 22.5 kgs. Just before I go further, I just want to note this 335 watt peak. What does that mean? It means that if all conditions are good, sunlight is good, panel is perpendicularly placed to the sun, and dust is not there, the temperature is at 25 degrees, the panel would produce 335 watt peak of power. But unfortunately, the problem is the sun keeps rotating, or rather earth keeps rotating, right? Because of that, you never get a perpendicular sun facing the module. You never have a ideal temperature of 25 degrees. You never have an ideal thing of without dust. Because of all these components, you would not get a 335 watt peak module rarely produces 335 watt. It usually is producing around 250 or less. That's for most part of these panels. So this rating only means that in ideal condition, this module produces 335 watt peak. Okay. Another thing with all these modules is they're sitting on the roof, right, where all the weather elements are there, the rain, everything is falling. This modules has to be ensured that they don't uh, uh, break, or they don't have the water seepage into the panels. So all these things are taken care in the module structure. So these are some of the electrical components. I won't go in detail. Here usually they are talking about the voltages, what is the current that it can give. This is used in designing the systems. Another one is a sun path and solar generation. Normally you would have seen all the solar water heaters in Bangalore. They all will be facing towards south. The reason is that northern hemisphere, uh, based on the latitude of the place, um, the sun spends its good amount of time in winter in southern direction. Now winter, we have a short sun durations. Sun kind of rises in southeast and then sets in southwest. So it's not a full circle as you see in the diagram here. It's just going very small and then setting up here. Whereas in summer, it's actually going all the way in the top. So you get a longer days in summer. So from September 21st to March 21st, sun is mostly on the southern direction in smaller days. So to give more amount of power in the winter time, people tend to keep the panels in the south direction. But from March to September, sun is actually in the northern side. But since we have a longer duration, you get more power as well. This is the reason why they put it to south. South produces little better energy than on the north. Uh, However, it's not mandatory that all the panels has to be always placed on the south. Northern, you can keep the panels in the north or east or the west. You just that you will produce a little less energy. That's all it is. Uh, People tell you that you should always keep it in south. It's not true. You can put in any direction; it will still produce. What you should not do is put the shadows. You should ensure that there's no shadows on the panels. That's much more important than the direction of the panels. There's another component called temperature coefficient. You know, uh, with every rise of degree of after 25 degrees, right, the solar panel produces less amount of energy. There is a 0.385 percentage of loss in this particular panel for every degree centigrade rise or of temperature or lower in temperature, right? At 24 degrees it produces less, or at 26 degrees it produces less. At, let's say, if at a 45 degrees temperature, the we lose almost like 24 watts. A 335 watt peak module, because of the temperature alone, if at higher temperatures it produces only 305 watts instead of 335 watts. Uh, there's something to note. A lot of people think good the temperatures you get more, but it's not true. The other losses, as I said, are shadow losses, and the direction or instant angle of how the sun rays are falling on the panel. That also affects the solar generation. Uh, this is a good one to know. The dimensions of the panels is 1.9 by 1 meter, which I told you earlier. For example, on a 335 watt peak, now there are modules manufactured today. For example, Panasonic, LG, SunPower. These companies actually produce very high efficient cells, very expensive. But a same 335 watt peak module of uh, these modules is only 1.5 meters by 1 meter instead of 1.6 meters by 1 meter. So, this is something. If it's a cell is a good cell, means the smaller area it could produce more power. Obviously the size of the modules would be less in size. So a typical 1 kilowatt system consists of 3 panels. 335 multiplied by 3, you get 1 kilowatt, and it takes roughly, if you calculate, around 70 square feet or 77 square meters of area. Shadow-free area is needed. So that's amount. If you have let's say 200 square feet or 210 square feet of area on your roof, then you can put 3 kilowatt of system. Shadow free area I'm talking about. Typically there's a shadows from the tanks and all. We'll discuss later in the course. Now the other thumb rule that I want you to remember is energy generated. Typical in Bangalore city, a 1 kilowatt system is generating around 4 units of power, 4 units of energy on average per day throughout the year. There are days where it produces even 5.5, and there are days when it produces 1.52 units, because as you see, uh, uh, last 10 days has been really poor. We are seeing actually 3 units to 2.5 to 3 units of energy. So that's something as thumb rule I want you to remember as well. So why do you need this? So if you have a house that consumes let's say 10 units of 12 units of energy in a day, then to generate 12 units of energy you need uh, 3 kilowatt of system, right? 3 kilowatt, each kilowatt generates 4 units. 3 multiplied by 4, you get 12 units, right? Each kilowatt generating 4 units of energy. Another one is on the environmental benefits. A 5 kilowatt of system is equivalent to planting 2,500 trees. Typically, the solar plant are provided. If the structure is stable and everything is there. The solar panels come with 25 years warranties, and it's like equivalent to planting 2,500 trees, or it's equivalent to not driving 456,000 kilometers, of car. I drive an electrical car, and I know the amount of kilometers that I can save by using electricity, right? You compare that, you will getting a lifetime lot of kilometers of the equivalent energy to run an electrical car for that many kilometers. So now we go more detail into different types of systems. But before we discuss the different types of PV systems, uh, I want you to understand some of the technical glossaries, some of the uh, terms which I use. One is a grid. A grid is an interconnected network of transmission lines for delivering electricity from power generators using power supply companies like BESCOM to consumer like homes and industries and hospitals, which is what you see in the grid, right? All the cables that you are seeing outside your home or your offices, that's a grid that's coming from companies like BESCOM. The other thing is a load. A load is anything, a component of a circuit that consumes electric power, which is lights, fans, and everything. On-grid solar, it's a electricity generating solar PV system that is connected to the grid. Import of energy uh, is uh, energy that a consumer is taking from the grid to run their load. Means today, right, in your home, you're taking the energy from the grid to run your home. That's called import of the energy. Then you're taking the energy from outside. Export of energy is I can actually, if I have a power plant on my roof on my home, I generate the solar power and then I can actually give it to the grid. Means I can send the power that I'm generating here to the grid. Okay, that's called export from my home. I'm actually sending it out, so it's a export of energy. The other one is off-grid solar. In off-grid solar, uh, you're actually not connected to grid at all. You're actually, whatever you're generating, you're storing it in a battery and then using from the battery, like how you use your UPS today. You use it that way. The other two definitions is direct current and alternate current. Direct current is a continuous movement of electrons in a constant direction from negative to positive through a conducting material such as metal wire. The examples of direct current is actually the solar panels and the batteries. The chemistry of uh, these two panels and batteries is in the DC form. DC is a natural form of energy. That is being produced. Uh, but the problem with the DC is that you can't take that energy for longer distances without spending a lot of money on the cable, and the cost of the setting of the grid is becomes expensive. So the in the past, Tesla, you would have known, has come up with a different form of current, which is alternate current. This is a current with which it periodically reverses direction, contrast to direct current. And the wind, the good examples are the wind turbines, your lights, your home appliances. Many of them are AC form of power. So today, when you put your laptop, the adapter actually takes the AC power, right, from the grid. But internally, the laptop electronics is a DC. But every appliances that you have at home today, most of them are all AC. Your refrigerators, your TV, it all takes a alternate current. So the problem here, what I want you to know is solar produces a DC form of power, but all your appliances that are in your home use AC form of current. So which is a big issue now, because you can't directly connect a solar panel to your laptop and assume that your laptop could work. You need some other conversion mechanism. In this case, it's an inverter that could convert from the DC to AC and then power up your loads. Okay, so let's go to the basics. Types of PV system. There are really the four types which generally people use. One is hybrid system, uh, where you have grid and batteries, then on-grid system where there are no batteries but only the grid, uh, then off-grid and water pump system. We'll go in detail of each of these systems. Sorry. So let's look at off-grid system. In off-grid system here, you have a PV panels that are generating the power, which goes connected to a charge controller, and from charge controller, it's connected to a battery bank. So essentially, this charge controller regulates amount of power that a solar panel generates, because you don't want to overcharge the batteries, because batteries would burst. You would have seen these videos, right? So you put a charge controller in between so that the panels could uh, generate the power and can be stored. Once from the batteries, the power gets this is a DC form batteries, by the way. Now you have an inverter which converts from DC to AC and is connected to your distribution panel. From the distribution panel, you connect your load points like lights, switches, the TVs, refrigerators from there, and the power gets distributed from there. Okay, so this is an off-grid system. It's a very simple system where grid is not connected. All your appliances are connected from PV itself. The other type of system is an on-grid system. In this on-grid system, you have PV panels. So the definition of on-grid system is you're generating the power, but you're also interacting with the grid itself. What it means is that you can generate the power, and you can actually give the power to the grid. In this case, you can see these grid lines. Actually, from my home panels, I'm actually sending the power to the grid. Uh, Here in this, the components are the panels, the inverter. Once the DC directly converts to AC here, it goes to distribution board. Yeah, notice that there is no battery here. Okay, this only this directly power is coming to your load. So if the loads are not there, some of the power gets exported to the grid itself. When it's going to the grid, there is something called bidirectional meter, which actually measures amount of power that you are giving into the government. And also in the night time when sun is not there, or during the morning time when the loads are more, you take power from the grid. That also it measures, right? At the end of the month, someone from your BESCOM would come and take the meter readings and then bills you accordingly. So the three types of on-grid inverters, which is string, micros, and power optimizers. Before we discuss in detail about them, I want you to see a video that we have made, a short video, which explains how an on-grid system works. Because the rest of the topic for today will be primarily focused on this on-grid systems.
Hi, in this video, we shall explain what a solar grid-connected system is and how it works. A grid-connected solar system generally has four basic components: the solar or photovoltaic panels, the loads like PV, fan, AC, the solar inverter, and the grid or the main power supply. In a typical building, before connecting solar, the grid is the only source of power and all the loads in the building are run by it. After connecting solar PV system on the rooftop, the power required by the loads is supplied by the solar or the grid or both together. The working of an on-grid system can be explained in 5 simple scenarios. When solar generation is equal to the load requirement, the loads are completely run by the solar power. The grid is available, but power from it is not required at this time. When solar generation is greater than the load, the generated solar power will support the existing loads first, and the excess will be sent out to the grid. This is called as export to the grid. When load requirement is greater than the solar generation, all solar power will be self-consumed by the loads. Meanwhile, the grid will join to support the excess load demand. Typically during night time, when there is no solar generation, the grid will supply power to meet the load requirements. This is called import from the grid. In the absence of the grid, that is during a power cut, the solar inverter shuts down. This is for the safety of the staff working on the grid for maintenance. Feel free to contact us to know more about solar rooftop systems.
Okay. I hope you are able to hear the video audio. So one of the main things that I wanted to remember is that the when the grid is not there, right? When the grid is not there, even the solar generation is switched off. The reason being, you don't want to export the power to the grid because some linemen could be working on the grid, and we don't want them to get a shock, right? So government has actually mandated such that all the inverters that are manufactured in the world, they can only work if the grid is there. That's it's a mandate. There are a lot of certifications that goes through. So all the ESCOMs actually, at least in Karnataka, require some empanelment of the inverters. You can't put any inverter that you want to the grid. You need to get the permission to set up the inverters. So that's one thing. The second thing is also, I wanted to take away from that video is a load. If let's say a load needs 1000 watts of power, right? But solar might be producing only 500 watts, or let's say 400 watts of power. Then the rest of the 600 watts has to come from the grid, because your load needs that much. So because of that, a grid power also would be used to run your loads. If the loads are generating more than what the solar loads are, consumption is more than the solar generation. So which is why it's called on-grid system, because it needs the grid connectivity to the PV modules. And this is not a backup system. Okay, means if there's a power cut, unfortunately the on-grid system switches off by its nature, right? So if you look at on-grid system, in an on-grid system you have series of modules, that are connected to a string inverter. For example, in this case, I mean, there are like 12 panels or something that are connected. The in a series connection means, what I mean by series is that there are two terminals behind each panel, which is one positive and one negative. You are connecting the positive of one panel to the negative of one panel. That's a series form of connection. You don't need to know the entire details about how the things work. But only thing I wanted to remember in that series connection, there are some certain disadvantages to that. And the main disadvantage is that if shadow falls on one of these modules, let's say the module 1 has got a tree shadow, since they are all in series, uh, all the other modules, because first one would generate less power, right, as a shadow is fallen. All the other modules, although there is no shadow in this other rest of this 11 modules, it will think, I mean, it will act as if there is a shadow on all these 12 modules, and they all produce the same amount of uh, power as a first module which has got a shadow. This is unfortunately the property for the panels that are connected in series. So whenever we use a string inverters in these type of inverters, we don't, we choose places where uh, there are no shadows on the panels. Okay, the advantage of the string inverter is that you only need one inverter for all these set of panels, but there are issues of shadow degradation, the shadow factors. The other thing is also over the time that each panel will degrade differently. There's a 1% degradation over a period of time, and the as you said, the least generating module would make all the other good working modules also produce the same amount of power. you are losing certain amount of power due to degradation as well. The warranties on these inverters is 5 to 7 years. This monitoring happens at a string level or at the inverter level. So I don't know how each module is performing. Okay, in this type of system, I could only know the total generation that the system is producing. Okay, but I can monitor it online on the web. That's a good news is I can monitor, but the bad news is I can only monitor at a string level, or at most I can monitor at the system level. Because I don't know how each panel is working. Identification of fault becomes very tricky in this system. I have to go and check each module where the fault is, but that's a way the system is built. In terms of maintenance, since there is no panel level monitoring, uh, maintenance becomes uh, challenging. Okay. Having said that, wherever the shadows are not there, you have a maintenance staff or you're monitoring it regularly or cleaning the modules frequently. String inverters are extremely effective. They are cost-effective solutions, and rate of returns, or the money that you invest and the amount you can make out of that would be also faster. Okay, that's the advantage of string inverter system. The second type of system is a microinverter system. In this system, you have this tries to solve the some of the issues with the string inverter. Uh, you have a inverter per panel. Okay, each panel is works independent of the other panels. You have 4 panels and you have 4 microinverters. So the DC conversion, right, from DC to AC happens at the panel itself. And then that's connected to the distribution board, and from there it acts the same way as a on-grid system like a string inverter. But here at the panel level, you are already producing the converting from DC to AC, and each panels are not interconnected at all. So you have good amount of generation. Even if there's a shadow on one module, the other modules work equally well. Tomorrow you want to add more panels, and maybe there's a different technology altogether. Maybe the technology has evolved and you're getting better panels. Then all you have to do is you buy that module, a new module, and then put a new micro, and then you can actually connect it. So it's kind of expandable system, scalable as well. Then you get the third important aspect is that since there is a micro inverter and connected to each panel, I can actually monitor how each panel is working as well. So it's a good thing because if I have to maintain the system in the future, I can maintain it easily because I can see which modules have gone bad, and I can raise a complaint with the manufacturer, and then we could get a replacement. The fourth, one of the other advantages with microinverters is that it is converted from DC to AC at the panel itself, right? So in a typical on-grid systems, since they are all connected in series, there's a chance of high voltage, because each panel is around 44 volt. Multiplied that by 12, you're looking at around 600 voltage of coming out of the system. Now that's a DC voltage is high voltage is not a good thing. So typically we try to avoid it by keeping the modules or the inverters very close to the panels. Okay, that's here you don't have that disadvantage. But the main disadvantage of the microinverters is that because it's a independent system, the cost of micros becomes expensive. Okay, so the cost is not an issue. Microinverter is a good solution. So to counter, to give balance this out, there's third type of system which is a power optimization solution. Here again, there's a instead of a inverter, there's a device that kind of makes each panel independent of each other. The device is called power optimizers. It optimizes the generation of panel independent of the other modules, but the power is still the DC output is coming from each panel. It has all the advantages of microinverters, because each panels are producing more, they're independent. The only disadvantage is that they all are connected to one inverter, right? And then from there it gets distributed to the load or the grid. This inverter is kind of a single point of failure. Inverter is a micro. If one panel is not working or the one micro is not working, the other panels and micros work, perfectly well. So that's one disadvantage in the power optimizer solution. Also, the cost becomes cheaper for higher sizes of systems. The another disadvantage in a power optimizer is that it's a DC. The AC happens here, so you have chances of high voltage in this system. Also, it could go to 750 volt, whereas here the output will be only 230 AC volt. Which is what you have at your home today. So the one of the another advantage of both micros and power optimizers is that uh, you know you don't need to keep all the panels facing towards the same direction. They can be in independent direction. This is one of our installations in Bangalore where the panels are kept in different directions because the space was not available, and the client actually still wanted to go ahead and put the panels on his roof. So here we have done that. This is possible only with micros or the optimizer solution, whereas we couldn't have done it in a string inverter, because remember, in string inverter, if one of the modules produces less power, the other modules also produce less. So in a system like this where each panel is facing different direction, sun is only, because sun is in air only one side, maybe the south facing panel, maybe this panel would produce more power than this two modules. So if the north facing is producing less, then even though the south facing module is producing more power, it ensures that this module also produces less power. Why? Because they are all connected in series in a string inverter. So in string inverter system, you can't do all these uh, uh, panel installation. So it can only happen in the microinverter power optimizer solution. I put different advantages and disadvantages here. Um, we discussed all of this, string inverters versus microinverters solutions. The one of the other ones which I have to mention here is that string inverters comes with a 5 years warranty. You can extend them to 10 years, and some of the inverters latest I've seen are also coming with 20 years of warranties as well on the string inverter, whereas micro inverters and power optimizers by default they come with 10 years to 12 and 25 years of warranties, depending on the cost of the system that someone is willing to pay. Um, so we discussed on-grid systems, but as you know, the on-grid system has got a major disadvantage. The disadvantage is that if the power failure happens, then you can't export the power to the grid. The hybrid system solves that problem. In a hybrid system, you also introduce a battery here. So the whatever the power, and there's charge controller also, the whatever the power you are producing, it could store in the battery. If the batteries are uh, full, then it can actually send the power to the load or actually to the grid itself. Okay, so here, you can do everything that you want it. You want to store it in the battery power and use it, you can do it. You want to sell the power to the government, you can do it. You can actually control amount of grid that you want to take inside the home. Or if there is no grid at all, that's absolutely okay. It will work without the grid connectivity at all. It will only take the batteries and the loads. It's a good system, but unfortunately the cost of the system is more. Why? Because the batteries, you want to keep the battery size enough that all the solar power that you generate can be stored, which means that I need to have a bigger size batteries, and the cost of the system could go up. The other one is a solar water pumps. Solar water pumps um, is a good thing. I mean, typically in a regular systems, you need a battery to store the power, right? In a solar water pump, we are connecting the panels directly to these variable speed pumps. These pumps, depending on the current and voltage, they change the speeds. So you don't need a battery here. You can directly connect the pumps, and you can expect the water to come depending on the sun's intensity. If sun's intensity is more, the water output will be more. If the intensity is less, the output will be less. You can directly connect to the tank. There are a good number of pumps that are being connected these days, but government is also coming with a plan to connect 1 or 2 lakhs of solar pumps in few years from now. Uh, the problem is that these pumps are expensive. Maybe a 5 HP pump, you're looking at around 4.4 to 4.5 lakhs rupees of investment. Uh, Poor farmers may not be able to invest so much of money, but at least the rich farmers today, who have the land and the water, but no power, can actually go and install the solar water pumps and do farming. We have done water pumps. Our counterpart, our parent company, which is in Araville, Pondicherry, they are doing thousands of pumps now across India to give the water for sanitation purposes, for the drinking water, in some of these remote villages in India. Uh, I wish I could share the video, a link of the work that has been done in the water pumps. So I'll have one of us will post that video on the uh, YouTube, and then they'll share the link so you can actually see it post session. So that's about the different types of systems, off-grid, on-grid, and hybrid. As I said, each has its own advantages. Off-grid systems are used when there are power cuts, and hybrid systems also could be used. On-grid systems obviously can't use them because it needs a grid connectivity to be there. It produces a backup power. Hybrid systems also gives a backup. Uh, you know, off-grid system can completely independent of the grid. You have built a house remote area, you can have all the luxuries of the world and still be connected to solar and not have any power connectivity from the Bescom or any local supply company. A good case in point in Kerala today, the only systems that are working, because there's no power in most of the areas, but people who have actually got solar are the only houses that have a light source. Of course, I've seen even the Cochin airport has been filled with water because that's a ground mounted, but most of the time the panels are on the higher up roof. So even if the storms come or the systems are designed well, they should be able to withstand the water, ingress into the system. So so you have these off-grid systems are good in that sense. Um, the the cost of the system is something that that I wanted to know. On-grid systems are much cheaper than the off-grid systems or the hybrid systems. For example, an on-grid system costs around X rupees. An off-grid system would cost 2 times that, primarily because you're investing extra amount on the battery in off-grid system. In the hybrid system, uh, you don't need to size the same amount of battery size like an off-grid system because you also can sell the power to the government. So the cost of the system could be lesser. It could be 1.5 to 2 times in a hybrid system. In terms of energy generation, a off-grid system, let's say per kilowatt, it can generate 2.5 to 3 units. An on-grid system would generate more, 3.5 to 4 units, whereas an hybrid system would also generate 2.5 to maybe 3.5, I can say, units per kilowatt. The reason is in a on-grid system, there are no losses, there are no batteries, the inverters are really high efficient, 96% efficient inverters. So the losses are very less, so you generate a high amount of power at any point of time. Whereas in off-grid system, the inverters are bulky, the transformer, your batteries have a losses too, and you can't generate when you don't have loads. So solar works really inefficiently in off-grid system. in some to some extent in hybrid systems also. So, but the good thing with hybrid systems is that, when there's a power cut, you can still generate the power, right? So that way hybrid systems are better than off grid and on grid. But in terms of just pure losses of energy and stuff, on grid is efficiency wise. That's about the best, the types of systems. Hope you understood different types of systems. The one thing that I want you to take away from that is that you can generate the power, you can use it for your homes, or you can actually export the power. If you're able to export the power, then government will pay you certain amount. Now, the amount that they pay you or you will save by generating that much of power depends on the policies of each state. Now, BESCOM, which is our Bangalore supply company, has got a solar rooftop policy. Their new policy was announced 2 months ago, but the first policy was written in 2014. But since then, the policy has been revised multiple times. Now we have a new policy which is got enforced from April of, sorry, from June of this year. So one of the policies is that the rooftop has to be 10 feet tall. The second is that whatever your sanction load capacity is, which is 100% of the sanction load, I can connect the solar. Which means if you have a sanction load of 5 kilowatt for your home, I'm allowed only to put 5 kilowatt of solar modules. I cannot put 6 kilowatt of solar modules on a 5 kilowatt of sanction load. This thing, sanction load is something that government would have given to you, and it's mentioned in your electricity bill. That that only that much you're allowed to put the solar. That's one. The systems can be connected to gross meter, net meter. I'll explain you shortly what a gross meter, net meter is. In the residential sectors, for commercial metering or industries, you can have to go with net metering approach, and I'll explain you what this is. The government also signs up a power purchase agreement for 25 years, which is saying that I can buy the power from you for next 25 years at certain rate. And it says that I have a net metering, I'm allowed to put on a net metering basis. So this is on a stamped paper. So government cannot deny you your right future because they change the policies or anything like that. So this is to safeguard the customers. They do this. And then BESCOM buys your power that you are generating. Sorry, this is not updated. This slide, it says 7 rupees 8 paisa, but that has now been reduced to 3 rupees 27 paisa, which means that, see, whatever you generate, right? If you're self-consuming it within the house, it's not a problem. You save that much of electricity from your bill. Whatever you use, you're not avoiding that much of power intake from the grid, so that you save, and that's fine. But what happens if you are able to generate more and you are exporting to the government? If you're exporting more, then government says that I'll buy that power at 3 rupees 27 paisa, and I'll explain you. Sorry for the slide; it's not been updated. This new changes have come only in this June. That we have not decided to do it. So there are there are 9 formats to be completed for the entire process. So for systems above 10 kilowatt peak, you need a CIG approval, which is a Central Electrical Inspectorate General. They actually look at the safety of the system. For that, the policy says that above 10 kilowatt, you need the approvals from the CIG. In terms of, I told you about net metering. So how the net metering works? Here, the solar generates. If it generates, it goes directly to the load if the loads are there. If loads are not there, it goes via a bidirectional meter to the grid. Right. Whenever it goes out to the grid, this meter takes a note. it says, okay, you have sent 10 units, okay, today. So tomorrow you are sending 20 more units. So tomorrow, if you go and see the meter reading, it will be 20 units. Day after tomorrow, you have sent 10 more units. Then on the third day, you would see the meter reading as 30 units. Okay, it gives you the total quantum. It doesn't say on which day how much you have sent, but it will note down the total amount of energy that you have given and pumped to the grid. So at the end of the month, okay, uh, the the meter reader can read how many units you have generated. So if you're generating and giving 10 units every day to the grid, at the end of the month in 30 days, you would see 300 units have been given to the grid, right? However, there's also that you're going to take some of the power from the grid itself during the morning time if loads are more, but definitely in the night time when loads are less or more, since solar is not there, it takes the power from the grid. That time it records it as a import of power. So every year, let's say you are consuming uh, uh, 8 units of power every day. You're taking 8 units. At the end of the month, you have consumed 240 units. Okay, 240 units of energy has been used from the grid also, right? Whereas you've given 300 units to the grid, you have consumed 240 units to your home to run your loads. Now, what is the net? Net is a 300 minus 240, which is 60 units. Okay, for that 60 units, because you have generated 60 units more from solar, government says I'll pay you 3 rupees 27 paisa today. Okay, for the net export. So your monthly bill, okay, at the end of the month, you're going to pay. So government will pay you back 3 rupees 27 paisa multiplied by 60 units. Roughly 180 rupees or so. They'll pay you. But what is important is you have not paid a single rupee for that 240 units. Uh, of solar power. Why? Because you have generated that much from the solar, right? So otherwise you would have paid, let's say 600 rupees. By putting solar, you have actually reduced your electricity bill. In the gross meter, this is allowed, but no one goes for it now. In the gross meter, you are generating the power, and you have 2 meters. Okay, one is totally disconnected from your homes at all. There are 2 meters. One is only selling the power to the grid, and other is only you're taking the power from the grid. Government says, I don't care how much you take from the grid, but I'll pay you money for every unit that you have given it to me from solar. Okay, so this is a totally independent system. It's like putting separate meters, separate panels, irrespective of what you have at home, and then just selling the power to the government. So if you have produced 300 units, government will pay you 300 multiplied by 3 rupees 27 paisa, right? And whatever you are consuming you are consuming, you have to pay your regular electricity bill. It's not a good system to go now. It used to be the good system few months ago, but now it's better to go for net metering, because by consuming it first, you are saving that much of power intake from the grid. So because today the tariff rate for the grid is almost like you pay 7 rupees 65 paisa per every unit you avoid taking power from the grid. You are saving almost 7 rupee 80 paisa, of per unit. Okay, whereas in a gross meter you will only earn, there you save, but here you earn 3 rupees 27 paisa for every unit that you are selling to the government. So it doesn't make any sense, except if it's a big systems, in 1 or 2 megawatts. But for all practical purposes, gross meter is not a good solution at this time. Again, I have put 7 rupees 8 paisa here, that has to be changed. I will take an example so that you get a clear idea of how this works. You have fixed charges. Okay, for every kilowatt of sanction load, you have to pay certain amount. This is for using the transformer from the BESCOM to export the power or use the power from them. This you can't avoid. Okay, solar, you have to pay this cost irrespective of solar generation. But then there are other costs, that variable charges you pay, depending on the type of number of units that you consume. Government gives slabbed approach because people who are poor may not be afford to pay more amount for the basic energy needs. So government says, you only pay less amount of power, 3 rupees 27 paisa. Again, sorry, we have not updated the slide. This again has changed, I believe, to by 25 paisa or so. So for every 30 units, you're here as per this 327, for the 31 to 100 units, you're 4.7. So this is a different slabs. What happens is when you put solar, right, and let's say you're producing 600 units of energy from solar, for the first 200, right, from 600 to 400, 400 to 600 units, you avoid this much of tariff rate. After that you will avoid 7 rupees 35 paisa. After that you avoid 7 rupees 30, or 625, depending on the slabs. But by going solar, you are avoiding that much of intake of grid power. That's what I want you to remember. This is just a thumb rule calculations, and to give an example, let's say a house consumes 600 units and he has a sanction load of 5 kilowatts. So as per the government allows, okay, if sanction load is 5 kilowatt, they allow 5 kilowatt of solar panels. So you put a 5 kilowatt of panels, and remember the thumb rules, we said 3.4 to 4 units. So in a month, a 5 kilowatt system would generate 600 units. That is by 5 multiplied by 4 multiplied by 30 days. So 5 into 4 is 20 units. 20 multiplied by 30 is around 600 units. So you produce 600 units of energy. Now what happens is the 600 units of energy, government, you are avoiding that much of intake from the grid, right? So in normal course, if the solar is not there, you would have paid 3,996 rupees bill, for using 600 units of energy. This would have been your bill. By putting solar and generating that much of 600 units, you avoid this bill. This bill is calculated by this differential tariff rates. So if your bill before solar is coming 4,186.50 paisa, including the fixed charges, after the solar you put, you only get 190 rupees. So your savings is almost 4,000 rupees of savings that you have by going net metering. I know this lot of information I've told. If you have any questions and you want to know more details about it, please do call us on this. And or if you have questions, you can write it on the chat group. I'll be able to explain, or we can have a separate discussion also on this if you are not able to understand how the bills are calculated. But main idea I want you to remember is that you are saving that some amount of bill amount. That's about the electricity bill and the policies. Each state has got a different policy. If you are from other states, you should look at the statewide policies, and you will be able to get. But more or less, most of the states follow the same approach, like in Karnataka. On its solar system components, we'll look at each of the individual components. This is the grid, the SLD that we have for one of the projects. Each of these components are panels. Now we have connected each of them in series. There are a lot of these switches. I won't go in detail, but I'll show you how they look like. All these switches which are connected here are to protect your equipment. Equipments are very expensive, right? The inverter is very expensive. The panels are expensive. These are here to protect this equipment. From here, it connected to the inverter. From inverter, it goes to the ACDB and box. Again, this is the surge protection devices, which again is to protect your inverters from any untoward instances that happen on the grid. And then you connect it to a common bus bar, where your grid and your loads, everything are connected. You're connecting that solar output there to that same bus bar. By its current, by its nature, the electricity by its nature, it either gets distributed to the grid, or it gets distributed to the loads. I mean, it does automatically, right? It doesn't, we don't need to do any magic there. It gets distributed. All we are doing is connecting it and putting all of protections. So we'll go in individual components. So these are panels which we have discussed. What you see is this is one of the sites that we have done in Ballari. There's some walkway spaces for people to go and maintain them easily. This is electrical accessories, the box, where these are some fuses. This is disconnect switches, for people who want to maintain. There's issues, people can go and immediately turn off and then do the maintenance. Little thing that you see here is a monitoring device. This is an inverter, the biggie. These are again the AC side switches. This is a over voltage protection device there. This is a meter cubicles, where we install the meters. This is some devices that we use for monitoring, but here will be the meter installed, the bidirectional meter that I discussed about. This is how one fully finished project looks like in the meter box. These meter boxes could be small or big depending on the size of the system. It could get more complicated as the system size increases. So it varies, but I wanted to get a feel for how the meters are installed, right? This is as simple as that. What you look there is. These are the different types of inverters. This is a micro inverter that I talked about, which goes below the panel. This is a string inverter, and this is a off-grid and hybrid inverters. This is a flat roofs, on which we are structures, which where we put things. For example, in our installations, how we do, we don't drill anything, but there are people who also drill the roof and then connect. Again, it depends on, how the customer wants it. This is on a mounting structures on a corrugated sheet. Here we are doing the rivets. Different profiles has got different types. So depending on the customer sheet, we actually have these profiles that we use, aluminum profiles, where we rivet them. We don't bolt them, which gives them the strength and as well as the water proof as well, because there is no holes that are exposed for water to come. The water that falls goes below this sheet, and the rivets are done only here. Even in these rivets, they're completely knocked out. On top of that, there will be a panel which comes like this, so there is no chance of water falling on this, even if there is a little gaps, which is not possible. But even if assume that if it is there, it still would not cause any issue of water leakages because of these panels. That's one way. This is one of our other roofs. It's a corrugated sheet where we have done for water pumps. Again, we have to make specialized structures depending on the type of trusses. This is a tile roof, mangrove tiles. These are slanted roofs where we make a different types of clamps again to put the structures. This is another inclined roofs. The customer wanted the pans to be facing towards the south, and the roof was facing towards the north. So we had to do another structure with aluminum angles to bring that angle. These are the bidirectional meters. You saw the meter cubicle earlier. This is how the meter looks like. It's no different from what you normally the meters look like. It's just that it also has these two switches where you can actually click and see how the generations are. There are two types of meters. Here, one is a bidirectional meter, which you measure both inward and outward. but also there's a smaller meter which you see here, which is called solar meter or gross meter. This measures the total generation of solar power. You have, uh, 5 kilowatt of system generating some uh, uh, 600 units a month. Uh, it measures the total energy of solar, whereas this measures only the ones which it has exported to the grid. It doesn't know the total solar generation. By the time the power comes here, it has already been used at inside the load, right? Inside the building for to run the loads. So the bidirectional meter doesn't know, but this meter uh, is connected directly to solar panels, so it kind of knows amount of solar that has generated. And there's a manual disconnection switches there. The other ones are the cables. You have DC and AC cables. We know the thing with these cables is, these are sitting outside on the roof, and they're exposed to all the weather elements for, assuming that they'll be there for 25 years. You do need to have certain ratings, uh, as well as, because of the long-term durability of these cables, you should look at proper coloring and the UV protections, and the type of insulation that it has got becomes very important. So UV resistant, heat resistant, and the long life, as we discussed. Color coding is important, as I said, because these are really high DC voltage cables. You don't really want to mess up with them. Normally, in electricians, you would see in a house they would put whatever is available for them at time. They'll use different colors. That's not at all should not be the case when in solar, because it's crucial to ensure that the guy who's going to come next knows exactly how the systems are done. This is for the future maintenance. So this is something that we do. Uh, Again, there are different types of cabling. The color codings not needed, but something that I said it's important. Um, the other one is a DC earthing. Again, there are certain standards from the government of Karnataka as well as government of India. Uh, the central bodies are CEA, the Central Electrical Authority, and the local is the CIG, and they have certain guidelines that they have issued. We have to follow those guidelines to do the earthing. This is for the own safety, so that to protect from unexpected surges or the lightning strikes. The next is a site survey. So this we have covered most of the things. This is something what we do when we come to your home or to your factory to look at the details. So that if you have to propose a system for designing, I would need these details and I would have to look in detail. So this is one example. This is one warehouse where we plan to put solar panels. So this was designed, and shared with the customer how it looks like. For example, there's a tall tank here. So we have actually made a shadow figure there, so that the shadow does not fall on these panels. There are trees, so we have to give the gap so that the shadow cannot fall on them. This is kind of important. For the shadow factors, what we look at, as a thumb rule for Bangalore, then this differs with various cities. For Bangalore areas, we look at 1:1. If my height of this building is 2 meters, I give a gap of 2 meters from the panels to the building, so that the shadow does not fall. As I told you, remember the string inverter, if one of the modules get the shadow, the rest of the modules also would become uh, start generating lesser power. This becomes more crucial, to avoid the shadows in the string inverters. Although it might, in the micro inverters and optimizers, you can actually still go ahead and put the panels. You would not affect other panels from generating. The other one is a angle with which inclination we want to put. Bangalore is at the inclination of 13 degrees latitude. The ideal, it's again, this all came through experimentations and um, theoretical studies. The better suggestion for panel inclination to generate maximum power is to give the same angle as the latitude of the land. In Bangalore, it happens to be 13 degrees. Having said that, it's not a big deal, I mean, because we are close to the equator, your losses are a maximum of 1 to 2%, if you are putting it towards the north versus south. So if you have a spatial constraints, don't worry about it, you can still go for solar, but you assume that there will be lesser generation because of that, maybe 1 or 2% that you can compensate by keeping one more panel. So as also said, you want to put solar inverters close to the panels because the panels are giving high voltage DC. So you have to locate all these things. When we go for site surveys, you want to ensure that the voltage drops are less. The longer the distance between the panels and the inverter, the more the voltage drops are. So you've got to avoid that. I have one question here, so let me just read. Can This is from Mr. Yaling SJ. If my house is connected to three-phase supply, if install single-phase inverter and connect solar only in one phase and export, will be the bidirectional meter measure the export? That's a very, very good question. The answer is yes. If you have a single-phase, three-phase connection, and if we put a smaller system which is only single-phase connection, the bidirectional meter, which is going to be a three-phase bidirectional meter, would measure the single-phase connections as well. So typically for most of our connections that we do or the systems that we connect in Bangalore, they're all connected with the same approach what you said. They're all three-phase, lot of houses, but solar is allowed only for single phase if it's a systems that are less than 5 kilowatt. So we do that. Almost every project is is the same configuration, so it should be good. So there's one more question, Sri Shiva Shakti, how to calculate the shadow. There are simulation tools which we use. There are tools called PVSYST, and there is another one called Helioscope, where we can do this analysis of how the shadow affects. We have done extensively of these simulations during our early learning times. Now we are more or less conversant of where the shadows and how they affect, provided we do the site visits and get them. As I told you, this is we have to look at all these things, components. We do for most of our houses where we get the projects, we actually do these 3D analysis, and then only suggest the panels, location, and stuff. I'll show you actually some of the installations, the video shortly, how the things are done. And also there is a video also I will share you very shortly how the shadow affects the generation as well. This is again main distribution board. We need to look at how the distribution board is put and how we have to lay the cabling. This all has to be done at the time of site inspections. So it's very important that the cables are done properly. The routings, you don't want to put on the top. You should do it from the down, primarily because you could avoid any water seepage through the holes which are done on the top. So as we discuss, someone was asking about shadows. This is something that we have done some experiments at our own office with the microinverters, which I would like to share with you. This data is not available. Most people don't know about how this shadow affects, which we think is very, very important, that people who are going for solar should know that shadow does affect quite a bit. Here are some experimentation results. For example, you have a shadow that I blocked one of the cell line, so if you look at these two panels, right, both of them are facing towards the south. Module which is not covered is producing 171 watts, whereas module which has a covered is producing 127 watts. So you have lost 50 watts there. If you have covered two lines, again, you're still losing 133. Almost 60 to 70 watts has been lost there. If you convert all three of them, you can see we lost quite a bit of it. In terms of dusting, if I have dust of this sort, if this clean panel produces 121, this dusty panel will produce 57. So you lost 100 watts of uh, 80 watts of power there because of this dust. So it's important that you clean the modules as well. Luckily, in places like Bangalore, you have rains, so that kind of takes care of your shadows, sorry, on the cleaning. So at least in the dry seasons for 6 months in a year, you do need to clean the modules. Ensure that if you're staying in a very dusty area, maybe you should clean every once in a month or maybe once twice a week as well. But lucky that Bangalore does get good amount of rains. It does clean the modules. This is a shadow analysis. It's a short video, 1 minute video. You can see how a shadow from a nearby pole, electric line, affects the generation of the modules. This is a live thing. Let me just play it. I hope you can see the numbers there. I'll just pass it as a, now all the panels are producing equivalent energy, equivalent power, let me say. Now, as the time goes by, it's around 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. You can see the slowly the shadow is started coming. Now, if I just pass it for a second, all the modules are now producing 182 watts, now are 185 watts. Now we just see what happens. Okay, I'll just pass it again here. See this shadow here on this module, the fourth module, whereas this modules are producing 165, this is only producing 28. The type of shadow. See, these all shadows could affect majorly because of the way the panels are, uh, the cells are made. The connections are made, and it's important shadow because of this. And I'll just run you through the whole video. You can see how each of these modules, a single line. I mean, see this. Sorry, if we can just pass it one more here. You see the small line here on the fourth panel from the right. It's producing 145 watts, whereas other panels are producing 169. Right? Just that thin line actually could affect the generation by almost like 20 watts. So okay, the cheese goes, the generation goes really low. So that's about the shadow analysis. I hope you got an idea of how badly the shadows could affect. But a good thumb rule to use for your own, you can make your analysis today. Go to your room and homes and see 1:1, right? You give a gaps of 1:1 and see that area you can designate as a good area, where you can put the solar panels. If solar panels can't be put, the other way is to elevate the structures, from uh, because you have a shadow issues, right? You just elevate the structure and can keep the panels down on the rooftop. Uh, but shadow is a main criteria. I won't be so much concerned on the directionality at this time. If the direction is an issue, you put one more panel and you can avoid that. There are other types of monitoring. For this is an Enphase inverter. The micro inverters that we discussed. You can actually monitor at the panel level. So this is all cloud-based solutions. They come for 25 years of lifetime free monitoring. So once you connect it and you give the internet connection, the systems work. This is another system for a string inverter system. They come with 5 years of monitoring. You can see at the entire system level how the generations are happening. These are different types of inverters, so the monitoring looks different. So that's a bell curve. How the generation is a good place to pass. So look at the generation, right? It's a good day. Generation started at around 6:30. It goes maximum around 11 o'clock. It produces a peak, and then it again starts going down. So as you see, the solar generation is not constant. Okay, this is very important to know. A lot of people also have misconception that you put the panel, the sun is there, you should just keep producing the same amount of power. That's not true. it's a inverted bell curve. It produces more and more as the sun becomes more perpendicular to the panel. The once it reaches a perpendicular, because sun keeps moving, it starts reducing the power. Even at 1 o'clock, right? You look at 10 o'clock sun is less than the 12 o'clock sun. 12 o'clock, after that, after one, it just is a steep dive down. Okay, so this is another monitoring. Even for hybrid, you can do the monitoring. Okay, so this is here. You can see the uh, power consumption also. So what you see here, I'll just pass it. Here you are in a hybrid. In this particular system, I can actually monitor how your consumption also is. In your house, if you turn on the lights, let's say you are using 200 watts, you can monitor that also. Whereas in the top, you're monitoring how much solar is generated. In the bottom, you're also monitoring how much your house has consumed. So you can do lots of things with the monitoring. You can, depending on type of systems or your budgetary constraints, you can actually do fancy stuff with monitoring. So I'll now it's a good time for me to share you one of the videos of one of the installations that we have done. This installation is very unique because here we have in a single roof. It's a residential home in Jayanagar where we have done 20 kilowatt of system. It's a residential home, huge house. It's a mansion, but it's very interesting. There's every type of roofs we happen to install there. So This one video, this is another one. Because of the short of time, I'll just skip this video. But this, you can see that there's a kilowatt 391 kilowatt system that we've done. Uh, again, the shadow issues, a lot of things are taken care here as well. You can see the panels are laid on the top. This is AC combiner box that I've put in. There are other roofs as well there. Last thing that I want to cover is opportunities in solar. So hopefully you have got a picture of how solar and what are the different types of systems that are available. If you look at just on the opportunities, we think more or less the solar generation has been solved. All we are now doing is improving the efficiency of the modules. Going forward, we'll get a better efficiencies, maybe up to 40 to 45% of efficiencies in the modules. But the real problem with the solar or the wind energy is that they're unpredictable, right? I mean, you don't know when the solar is generating, when the wind is generating the power. So the real issue that we want to solve is to store the power somewhere, in the batteries. If you look at even the fossil fuels, they're kind of a storage, like battery system. All the energy is being stored in the form of a fossil fuel. You're using that when you need it. Same here with solar. The idea is that we should store that power somewhere else, and we feel this is where the real impact in the industry will happen or will come in the years to come. Maybe in next 3-4 years, we are seeing this. The good promise or the best bet today is lithium-ion battery. So you're going to see this field evolve. We have already started doing some projects on lithium-ion. Some of the pilots. More will come hopefully in the future. This is the charging port for Mahindra. What you see here was an existing one, earlier one. This plant actually, we have redid the whole the carport station for the Mahindra mobility. You probably know that Mahindra produces electricity cars. So we are actually finished another project. Where we made it in on-grid system, but as you see, the carports where you want your electrical vehicles to be charging from solar is an other place that's going to really evolve in future. The other one is, this is a project that we have done for sanitation for the water needs for a village in Madhya Pradesh, and you see a lot of pumps in future to come or become solar. Just to give you a feel for it, Karnataka alone has got 30 lakh pump sets. 30 lakh pump sets. You know, if you think even 1% of the pump sets are going to be converted to solar, that's a huge amount. But we feel that a lot of these pumps could be converted. In fact, chances are that we will convert the entire 30 lakh pump sets to solar. That's a feasibility. It's possible. It's solutions are available today. Huge opportunities that are going to be there in the pumping space. There are these specialized carts that are made. This is a uh, ice cream cart that's made at our parent company at Auroville. The I've seen food carts come with solar. This thing. We ourselves have done some projects in Bangalore where we've given the lighting solutions for these food trucks. So the lot of there's another one of our asset partners. Akash, he's doing a lot of good work to support the food vendors by using solar panels. And then you have boats that are running on solar. There's a company in Kerala, the houseboats. I don't know if some of you have seen. The houseboat is completely used to run on diesel. They consume huge amount of diesel because these houseboats stay in the middle of the lake for the whole night. These people have made the whole, entire houseboats with solar, so that there's no sound of DG sets running in the night. You have power the ferries that are running from solar itself. There's a huge development there. This microgrid solution. This is a project that we have done in a place called Demul. It's in a one of the highest elevated villages in the world. It's at 15,000 feet. There are not that many people who live at that elevation. There are places people go for a trek, but not really stay there. But this is like very old village. There's a set of community which lives there. We have set up a solar power plant there on that. Because they don't have any other source of power. The only thing that gets is for microgrid. The hydropower. Unfortunately, it's such an elevation that government couldn't even connect the power source there. But lately, I'm told that they have given some connection. But again, during the winter time, the entire water is not there for the hydros to run. So again, they'll have a problem. So you can set up these microgrid solutions for these villages. There are 5.5 lakh villages in India. You can imagine what we could do with solar for them, right? Imagine that every household in a village can have their own internet, own TV, own refrigerators, own ACs. As you know, when we can run the ACs as well with solar, so huge potential, to be unlocked there. There are these powered laptop bags. There are solar powered keyboards. Solar is one solution where you can run a calculator, right? You would have seen calculators from 80s that run with a simple solar panel, a smallest tiny panel. You can charge your laptops to, you can run the entire cities can be run on solar. That's a power of solar. Apart from that, there are also these energy efficient devices. Solar by itself is not a great solution. Solar has to be mixed with these energy efficient devices because solar consumes, it's expensive, it's not cheap. So idea is to really apt people for energy efficient devices. This is super fan that I showed you earlier. There are multiple researches that are happening to improve the efficiencies of the devices. So there's you would find in future that most of these existing fans, lights, your TVs to your refrigerators, they're all going to change their efficiencies quite drastically. There's a Bureau of Energy Efficiency in India that measures this. This is We see an opportunity in terms of government has set 100 gigawatts. We see opportunity 1,000 vision that India would be a forefront in energy generation. All our electrical, all our transportation vehicles, our power consumptions would be running on renewables and not on fossil fuels. That's the end of the workshop. I think we came almost on time. we're finishing at 12 o'clock as promised. Before I end the session, I want to just walk you through our story, which I've not covered. EcoSoch is started with a vision to deliver sustainable energy solutions. We are incubated from a place at Aravil. This is a international sustainable township in near Pondicherry. It is an offshoot of Sri Aurobindo Ashram, which is where we started our initial years have been spent there, uh, to learn our skills. And we still work with Arvil. All our projects are done in partnership with them. Our focus areas are solar rooftop systems, solar water pumps, and energy efficient solutions. We done a 3.5 megawatt. This was last year. Now I think we would have crossed 4.5 to 5 megawatts of rooftop installations. We are one of the first companies. In fact, I believe it's the first company to install the hybrid systems with the grid connectivity and net metering. This was done in Bangalore. We were told that there were no systems that were installed at the time. We also happen to be the first system to have installed the DG integrated solar rooftop on-grid systems. One of the factories that you have seen, the photo of it, it was the first place where it has been approved by the BESCOM to connect the DG integration. We also have worked with Enphase Micro to bring the micro inverters to Indian market. This is a project that I was saying that some of the references where the DG integration has been done. So when the power cut happens, the solar actually still generates the power and synchronizes with the DG and then supplies power to the factory. This is the first hybrid system that I was talking about that we have done. This is in Bangalore, at a community in Whitefield. We've done a mobile van. This is in partnership with one of the NGOs, and this project was funded by United Nations. The idea is to generate the power and power the appliances within the van. There are these tablets and TV which are connected inside the van. That the NGO actually goes and distributes these tablets to train them in local languages. Using this tablets. So the power that these tablets are getting is from the solar. This was a prototype demonstration project that we have done. Fortunately, I was told that this plant is the van still goes around to train. That's about us. I hope it was an interesting session. I know that it's a short form of our workshops, which is for 2 hours. So I had to really rush, and I couldn't figure out whether you have any questions on the way. But if you do have questions and you want to talk to us, please feel free to give us a call. Our phone number is 81234-10101. That's a general mobile number. My phone number is, you can talk to me also, 9535240349. And I'll wait for another 5 minutes. If you want me to, if you have any questions, you can raise. Otherwise, thank you again for everyone. I'll just thank you for attending the workshop. Last thing that I would like to share is that we spend a lot of time on these slides or on the presentations, and so we really request you, please do give us your feedback. Tell your friends you think this is a valuable workshop to attend, so that this gives us encouragement to do a lot more free workshops in the future as well. So we do these on-site workshops as well, but that we are trying to see different formats. So webinars is another format that we found to reach out to more people and encourage them. If there are new entrepreneurs who want to enter solar, it's really welcoming field. I feel there's a lot of scope for new entrepreneurs of the young generation to start working solar. Thank you very much. Uh, so I'll wait. I'll see if there are any questions. I can be here for some more time. I have with me Pramod. Pramod actually has done most of the work to arrange the uh, talk. So he's here next to me and just seeing it. Um, the presentation actually, I won't be able to share the presentation. I'm so sorry about that. Primarily because there are a lot of slides that where we talk about different companies, and then some of the uh, things about comparisons. We won't be able to share those details because of uh, we'll be advertising to one company, or or saying some disadvantages on another company. So that's unfortunately, they're all proprietary in some, this company's own. So it's not possible, but please do. We do write a lot of blogs. You can actually go to ecosource/blog, ecosource.com. You can actually find a lot of information that are presented. If you have any specific questions you want to know, please do write to us. I can actually write you back or share some of the slides which you want to know, so that you get whatever you're looking for. Yeah. I think we are good. So I believe there are no questions from the audience. So thank you again. So I'll see you at office. I hope I get chance to work with you in some of your projects. Yeah. Thank you.